for our group?
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Josh Milanig, landscape architect with Weston and Sampson. On the call with me, I have Lindsay Abbott and Tiffany Fong. So we have a quick presentation on the Tom Nevers multi-use path. So I think this is just the first slide of it. We'll go flip to the second one. So this is just our typical team. Brandon Kunkel is the practice leader at Weston and Sampson. I'm the project manager, and then Lindsay Abbott is helping along with Tiffany Fong from our team. I guess next slide, please. So just a quick kind of agenda that we wanted to go through. A couple years ago, Weston and Sampson did a feasibility study on there. I'm not sure if everybody on the committee has kind of read through that, but we'll just kind of get a quick distillation of that, bring you guys kind of up to speed, walk through some existing conditions, talk about the cycle experience, and then kind of leave it with some questions and comments at the end. Next slide. So the project background and purpose. So this is to expand upon your existing bike and multimodal path, recreation pathway system that you have on the island. We're looking to increase safety and mobility throughout the island for residents and visitors alike. We're also looking to create connections through existing assets that you have on the island that are currently not readily accessible via a dedicated bike or a multi-purpose kind of path. So that's kind of looking at it. And we're kind of going to be coming from the Milestone Road area down Tom Nevers Road towards kind of Pebble Beach and the Tom Nevers Field, kind of down that way, if that kind of helps everybody kind of formulate an idea in your brain where that is. And then item number 4 is we're just kind of, we want to support the transportation policies of accessible, affordable, and reliable multimodal options that you have on the island. Next slide, please. So like I said, we did a feasibility study back in 2001 that kind of looked at the possibility of this bike path on Tom Nevers Road. We dug into a little bit about which side of the road we wanted to go on, different kind of crossings and things like that would happen on there. So now we've kind of picked that up this year in 22, 23. We're kind of into schematic design, construction documents. We're working through permitting right now. There's a little bit of permitting right along Milestone Road. That's a Mass DOT road, so we will have a little bit of permitting just to get an access along Milestone Road. Property acquisition, that is ongoing. Obviously, there's a lot of property owners along Milestone Road, so once we have kind of an idea of and settled on the layout, we'll be needing to discuss property acquisitions with them to get the road installed. Looking to go out to bidding this winter with the construction next spring and summer. This is kind of the highlights. So next slide here, this is just a nice kind of more graphical kind of area of where we are. So we're right in the middle of August there between the 9 and 10. So kind of the stuff that we've done previously, you can see kind of the work that we've done, and going forward, kind of our targeting is final CDs right around January of the new year, and then working into bidding and getting out to construction. So quick highlight there of where we're at as we'll flip through. So just a quick kind of refresher course. Here are a lot of your existing paths, bike paths on there. And then you can see Tom Nevers is in that lower right-hand corner, kind of coming off Milestone Road. So it's just expanding your guys' reach on the island for bike paths, safe bike paths to a variety of your existing kind of elements that you have on island. Next slide. Again, this is just a little more highlighted one. So that's the particular kind of J hook, I guess we'll call it, Tom Nevers bike path there. We'll go on the next slide. So just a little more information that we have here. So this is just kind of a property map, shows kind of the buildings and kind of some of the opportunities and items that we need to kind of work around as we're getting a bike path on there. So it's heavily residential. You do have some conservation and some land bank properties along the extensive of the road. It's about 2.5 miles, I believe, from Milestone Road all the way to the end of where your Tom Nevers Park and Pebble Beach is. So it's a fairly long kind of path. Back on the feasibility study, when we looked at all the crossings and the properties on there, you can see onto the, so north is to the top, west is to the left of this image, south is to the bottom. So along the west side of Tom Nevers Road, there's more driveways and roadway crossings and properties on the left side. So for those reasons, we are looking to put the bike path on the east side, so on the right-hand side of this image. That's where we're focusing on putting the pathway there. There's just a little less things, I guess, to say on that slide, on that side of the road. Next slide, please. So existing conditions. So this is a nice typical existing condition photo of the Tom Nevers Road. This is looking towards the ocean, towards Tom Nevers Field and Pebble Beach down there. So you can see we have utility poles. So that's an item that we'll discuss later. So the utility poles are on the east side of the road, but it's a nice long kind of straightaway. We have a nice runner on the right-hand side there. So it is used. But right now it's just a straight shot with just edge of pavement and grass and vegetation on either side of it. So it's kind of a shared condition. So we're looking to remedy that. Next slide, please. So right now we are looking to start the pathway up right along Milestone Road and where Tom Nevers kind of splits off of that. You guys have installed a new bike, a bus shelter, a bus drop-off path on Tom Nevers Road. So the alignment is going to be just on the south side of Milestone Road, right where the crosswalk is, right where this kind of big yellow bike path sign. So that's the trailhead that we're starting with. It aligns with your bike path, it aligns with the crosswalk. It just makes sense to kind of start at that junction along the existing bike path that you can see in the right-hand slide here. That's along Milestone Road. Next slide. So off to the right here, kind of in the foresty kind of scrub, again, that's where we're gonna talk about in the next couple slides. There's a trailhead opportunity there. So if you're biking down Milestone Road on the bike path, you kind of come to the crosswalk that's happening on Milestone Road, and you'll see a trailhead kind of carved out into the existing kind of vegetation off to the right-hand side. So this kind of gives you guys a little bit of background. If you're on Milestone Road, biking down, this is where we'll start the trailhead location. Next slide, please. So again, as we talk about some other opportunities as we get down further down into along the pathway there, about halfway down, you have some land bank property. So we'll show you some options that we've looked at for adding interest in a bike path along here. So you can see the roadway is a little higher in this particular area. The topography dips down in here, and it's just some existing kind of scrubby vegetation that's growing down in there. Next slide. Lindsay, is this, I feel we're missing something.
I think there's this one in the next slide, or the end of the opportunities.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
Yep.
So again, as we move further down towards the end, we have other opportunities of looking for and things we need to deal with, fixed existing elements. You have the utility poles, and then as we get closer to the end of the pathway, some of the residential properties become closer and closer to Milestone Road. So we have some ideas and thoughts that we'd like to run by the committee here on how to effectively deal with a bike path and proximity to residential areas there. Next slide. This one is at the end of the path. So this would be where Tom Nevers bike path is going to bring you to. So we have Pebble Beach, and then off to the right, you have kind of your soccer fields and parks and things down there. So this would be kind of one of the opportunities that we'll be bringing people to. So you have an opportunity to have a safe bike path or a running path or walking path down to this particular asset that the island has. All right, next slide. This is a picture of me actually and my family. We rode Milestone Road a couple years ago. We rented bikes in town and then rode all the way out to Sconset Beach down at the end. That's my daughter in there, and she really liked the path. She pedaled the whole time. I didn't have to do anything. So I just wanted to throw this in there. It was kind of fun. It was a great, it was a, all right, sorry. So I just want to throw that in there. Next slide, please. So here are the 4 kind of areas that we want to go through here. So the first one is we have a couple options at the trailhead. Then option 2 is a boardwalk opportunity that we have at the land bank area. Area 3 is the intersection of Old Tom Nevers Road and Tom Nevers Road, and we have an idea of how we want to handle that intersection. And then the end of the trail, that's part number 4. So those are kind of the 4 main topics that we're kind of going to go through today. Next slide, please. So the trailhead sorry, go ahead.
Did you want me to present this part, Josh?
Yes. I'm going to
Excellent.
hand this off to Lindsay, please. Thank you.
Okay, super. Very nice to see you all this afternoon. I wanted to say that I had the opportunity to work on the open space and recreation plan for Nantucket. I understand that's still in draft form, but what I learned from that is population is in flux on Nantucket. So you've got, of course, these swellings in the summer season where you see lots of visitors. The population is enormous, and then you have shoulder seasons that are actually seeing quite a lot of people. And then year-round residents. And that year-round residents piece has actually really changed since the pandemic, so that people don't need to live close to where they work. They can work remotely from their home, the island of Nantucket, and perhaps their work is actually in Boston, but it's all done remotely. I think also we can all agree that post-pandemic we have seen a real need for recreation spaces, so outdoor places where we can exercise, we can gather together. We know that it's good for our physical and mental health and our emotional well-being, for social connections generally. So I think that was the starting point for thinking about the Tom Nevers multi-use path, that it needn't just be a transportation link that moved us from point A to point B, but rather it could be a recreation facility in its own right. And so with that, we began to think about the trail as offering a diversity of experiences. So that begins with the trailhead, where it has been located at the new bus stop. Due north is the Serengeti, and there is a pathway through here so you could walk from the Serengeti down to this intersection. And it's also about 3 miles from Sconset. So thinking of myself as a cyclist with a family of 3 kids and a husband, 3 miles seems like a good amount of distance to stop and to take a breath and to have a sip of water, and perhaps to have some kind of experience. So with that in mind, we began to think about the road name. So who is Tom Nevers? And we did a little desktop research and discovered that Tom Never was a Wampanoag Indian, so one of the original inhabitants of Nantucket Island. And he was a whale watcher. So there'll be a lot of place names. So Tom Never Pond and Tom Never's Head in the southeast area of Nantucket, where he watched for whales and participated in the whaling industry in that way. And so we wanted to perhaps allow for some storytelling, some interpretation at this point, something small, but significant and interesting for people, so that rather than it just having sort of a signpost telling you Tom Nevers Trail has begun, something to learn at this little spot of respite. So the option 1 kind of shows the most intervention. There are several benches that are wooden, perhaps they are white pine in the traditional wood of the Wampanoag, dugout canoes. Other materiality includes native trees, native ornamental grasses. At the end of the path, there is several farming implements, farming machinery that have been left out into the fields. So that kind of helped inform the core 10, the kind of rusted metal. And so we have kind of shown different elements using those materials. It would be completely porous. So it would be the stone dust path. And it would feature what we're suggesting now is sort of 3 blades and imprinted or cut out, laser cut out. We're suggesting some Wampanoag tribal patterning. I'm not sure what that looks like yet. If this is of interest to the committee and to the wider public, then certainly we want to engage representatives from the tribe and possibly an artist. But it gives you an idea of creating some kind of interest at the trailhead. And then continue on to the next experience. Next slide. And sorry, excuse me. So this is a second option, so less of an intervention, just something small off to the east side of the trail. And then a third option would just be the trail itself with a totem trail sign that let you know how long to the end of the path, that sort of minimal intervention. And then the next slide, Josh, I think you were going to talk about typical roadside experience and some of the other experiences along the path. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. That was great. So we have a couple options that Lindsay went through for the start of the trail. And then as we kind of move down the rest of the trail here, this is just a kind of a typical roadside experience. As you can imagine, the trail, the existing road is fairly straight, not a lot of curves in it. So the before is on the left-hand side, so you can see the vegetation goes pretty close up to the edge of the path or the edge of the roadway there. So in most of the areas where we have the path along the trail, we're going to have a 10-foot offset. So we have a nice vegetation buffer. So we're going to really try to separate the users and the bikers on their own path 10 feet away from the vehicular traffic there. We're not proposing to put any curbing or anything along the road. So the road will maintain the same. It's going to have just an edge of pavement and then just a 10-foot wide buffer. Then we'll have a paved asphalt bike path that's again 10 feet wide as we move away from the road, and that will allow kind of two-way use, so you can have bikers go in each direction. I believe the 10-foot wide is similar to what you have on Milestone Road. So it's a similar kind of condition that you have in Milestone if you take that right and go down this Tom Nevers Road. So it'll be a consistence of width and consistent of surfacing. Jason, did you have a question, or are you just in agreement?
I was just going to ask what was Milestone, if it was 10 or 12 feet for that, and you answered it as I was going to ask it. So thank you.
Great. Yep. So we're trying to kind of keep consistency of, if you're coming, let's say you're coming from town, you're on Milestone, and then you take the right and go down, at least it's a consistent, you've been used to it. The past 5 miles, you're going to be consistently along this next 2 as you go down towards the end. So that's just kind of a typical look that we're proposing on here. So then we'll just get to the next slide, please. So this is option or area number 2, where I explained earlier, in this land bank area where there's a little bit more topography that's happening. So as we cross the road, so we have a couple illustrations here. The top one is a plan view of a boardwalk. So the section line is going up and down. It's got 2 kind of arrows that are pointing to the right. So that's a section line that we just took. And if you look at the bottom slide here, that's just a section from the road going across into the wooded area. So the road is higher at this particular point. There's a culvert underneath the road. So the road's higher, the topography drops back down to a lower area there. Our thought along here is, if you can imagine the previous slide, you have a straight road and just a straight kind of pathway along the road, which is fine. In this particular area, we wanted to add a little bit more of a biker experience along here. So instead of just having the bike path just kind of keep trucking along the edge of the roadway there, which is an opportunity, we thought this would be a great particular area to have a little bit more interest. So we're proposing to have an elevated boardwalk through here. And so in addition to the horizontal kind of left and right of the sweep, as you're moving from the left going towards the right, you kind of have that bow out through there. We're also going to have a vertical element where the boardwalk is going to raise up a little bit, and then it'll fall back down and touch grade back on either end of it. So it's going to add a little bit more of an experience as you're biking down here. You get off into the woods, so we're going to separate the bikers from the vehicular area, so you get a little bit of separation, try to kind of sweep you out into kind of the forested area. But at the same time, the boardwalk is elevated, so we're going to give you a little bit more of a bird's eye kind of perch, so to speak, as we get out into the landscape. So you'll have a little bit more visibility. Hopefully you can get above some of the treetops there. This particular section right here, the boardwalk is actually a foot or two higher than the road, but you're about 55 feet or so from the edge of the road at this particular kind of bend. So that was one of the options that we were considering here. It's a very low impact design. The boardwalk is typically built, and you can see the bottom right-hand corner here. It's a prefabricated metal frame structure that's welded off-site, shipped to the island, and the contractor really just kind of bolts it together, so to speak. The helical piles that we would be proposing here are giant earth screws. So the way that when they build these particular boardwalks, they put the screws down, they build the platform, they drive their machine out, drill two more piles, put a platform, and keep kind of driving out as they go. So it's very low impact to the environment, really not driving equipment on the ground. They build it from the top and kind of build it as they go. There's a variety of different decking options on here. You can have pressure treated southern yellow pine decking, so it's a wooden surface on there. There's also a plastic, like a Trex type material surfacing that you can put on there. They do have different price points on either one of them, but then there's also different maintenance requirements on either one of those. So that's kind of an option that if we like the boardwalk, we can get into more specifics on surfacing and materiality on here. So that's one option on here. It would have the recommended railing heights because it's going to be taller. So we have fall heights. So it's going to meet all the MAAB and ADA guidelines. This whole pathway is ADA accessible. You know, all of our running slopes are under 5%. We designed to a 4.5% max. Side slopes are all going to be 0.5%. So it's fully ADA compliant. You know, it's wheelchair accessible if somebody really wanted to traverse the entire pathway there. That also includes the boardwalk here. Then the next slide, please. We took a look at what would it mean if we just continued the asphalt path down. I mean, we would still recommend decoupling the bike path from the roadway here. This particular area of Tom Nevers Road, there is some topography that is happening off the edge of the roadway here. So just to really try to have a minimal impact on the environment around here, we decoupled the road in this particular instance. Again, it adds interest. It's not a straight. We do have some kind of sweeps that happen through here, but this option here just follows the topography. So in this particular area, the paved pathway would be lower. It follows kind of the dip that happens down in this particular area. So instead of being above the vegetation, you're more down in kind of the forested area. You are lower than the road. We would need to raise the boardwalk up in this particular section because just hydraulically, the water is coming from, you know, the top of the page here, and it's flowing down towards Tom Nevers Road to a culvert that passes underneath the road and continues down to the bottom of the page here. So we wouldn't want to pave this and interrupt that water flow. So we would raise the boardwalk here, fill it, and we would have probably a 12-inch culvert or something just to provide that existing kind of stormwater hydrologic connection. We don't want to create a dam in here. So the bike path would be kind of lumped up, and you can see that in this particular section here. So those are kind of the two options that we're trying to propose on this particular area on this section. We'll move on to the next slide, please. And as we kind of continue down, we get to the intersection of Old Tom Nevers Road and Tom Nevers Road. So this is kind of a Y split, so to speak. So we've talked with Mike a little bit before, and our recommendation is to take a look, and we want to leave the existing intersection kind of how it is. To try to reconfigure this Old Tom Nevers Road and reconfigure the intersection there, we thought keeping it kind of the way it is makes sense. We would just bring the roadway closer to the edge of the pavement here. We would recommend installing a vertical granite curb kind of where the bike path is going to start abutting the vehicular roadway there. It's still going to be the same 10 feet wide. We'll just have a little bit of vertical granite curb on there just to help prevent a little bit of separation from vehicles on there. We'd cross the road. We would cross Old Tom Nevers Road and then reconnect back into Tom Nevers Road, and the pathway would go on there. We'd recommend a double stop line. So you'd have a stop sign before your crosswalk. But if you can look at where that stop sign is or where that stop bar is, it's very poor visual line of sight for your vehicular people. They can't see up or down Tom Nevers Road. So we would then recommend another, so it's basically a double stop bar. You'd stop before the crosswalk and then you'd stop again before you get onto Tom Nevers Road. That gives you better lines of sight up and down. So for the drivers, it's a safer intersection there, and then they can go kind of on their way either way there. To get the pathway into these particular areas, there is some grading that would happen. There would be some vegetation and some existing tree removal. So lines of sight for bikers or pedestrians that are going to be crossing the crosswalk is still very good. You can see up and down Tom Nevers Road a good distance. So if somebody's driving up Tom Nevers Road and they want to take that hard right and go down Old Tom Nevers Road, they still have good line of sight in case there's somebody in the crosswalk. So we're not creating any blind spots for pedestrians or people trying to cross the roads there. So the bottom picture here is just an existing photo of kind of what's happening currently on site. And we would be providing, so yeah, next slide, please. So this is the last kind of slide that we want to talk about. So this is towards the end of trail. So these 5 houses that you can see, these houses are starting to become closer and closer to the roadway there. Due to the beach, you can see kind of the bluff on the upper right-hand corner there. So the houses are getting closer to Tom Nevers Road. This particular area also, if you look really close, there's 3 red dots that are along the edge of Tom Nevers Road. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier. There is a series of utility poles that are marching down Tom Nevers Road, and the end of the last utility pole is kind of on that middle house. So it's it's the 3rd house in from the right. So that's the ending point. That's the last utility pole. So for those reasons, you don't have enough room between the utility pole and Tom Nevers Road to get your 10-foot wide bike path in. So for those reasons, we needed to push the bike path on the other side of the utility pole. So that's why the bike path is kind of on the neighbor's property lines, closer to their houses. But once we get past that last telephone pole, then we can sweep our bike path, and we're recommending that we would kind of couple back up the road and the bike path and put a vertical granite curb on there, but we would need to run the bike path kind of along the edge of Tom Nevers Road. So it's a little bit of a deviation from what we've been doing for the rest of the bike path, where we had a 10-foot wide kind of vegetation buffer along there. And that's really due to that last house. You can see the house that's really close to the road. If we would continue our 10-foot wide kind of bike path, the bike path goes right through that particular homeowner's kind of their driveway. So for those reasons, just to be respectful to the neighbor's house, and due to the end, this is kind of the end of the bike path. Hopefully there's less vehicular traffic there. And I don't know the number off the top of my head how long this particular section of road is, but we felt that for most of the drive, we had that vegetation buffer. And then this last kind of area, we would curb it and have the bike path follow the vehicular way there. And then right now we're just ending the park or ending the bike path kind of near that little guard shack that's down by Pebble Beach. I believe we've heard, at least through Weston and Sampson, there's some preliminary park redesigns that's happening on kind of the park and the athletic fields, that it's off to the right on here. So this is, but we don't have anything to design to, so this is kind of just an easy way that we can end the bike path, and then as you develop or reconfigure the park itself, we can revisit it. We're not adding a ton of infrastructure and a bunch of cost into something that, who knows, in a couple of years, if you redevelop that park, it gets blown up. So it's a nice way to end. Also, you're not really having a lot of vehicular traffic that goes down there anyway, because you have that guard shack there. So it's a safe kind of ending point for the people and gets you to where you want to go. If you're going to go to the beach or to the park, you're kind of right there, and you're fairly safe. This bottom left-hand image, so this is again on this is a picture from us when we were out on site. So you can see this last particular homeowner, they're really, really close to the existing drive lane there. So for those reasons, that's why we decided to bring the bike path close to the edge of pathway and kind of try to tuck it in right and sweep around our neighbor's house right there. So that's kind of the end of the presentation that we had. So we walked you kind of through from the front to the back, and would just like to get some feedback on particular, if you guys liked anything. Did we like the front trailhead, any of the trailhead options? Were they speaking to you? Do you have any concerns at the trail end where we're bringing the pathway next to the vehicular roadway? Any thoughts on the intersection at Tom Nevers and Old Tom Nevers? No, we just kind of wanted to get some feedback from the advisory committee there to see if there's any questions, comments, or concerns.
Great. Any advisory committee? Question, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I really like it in this. I'm a bit of a bike path nerd when it comes to like interesting infrastructure like bridges or that kind of stuff. And I really like the boardwalk idea, to have like an elevated like boardwalk bridge kind of part to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the road itself is indeed quite boring. So to make the bike path like interesting, I mean the car road is quite boring. So to make the bike path interesting, I think that's a good idea. I like the idea to incorporate history to it as well. Yeah, but I really hope we're gonna get that boardwalk or something similar to that. I would be really for that.
Yeah, I think, that was when we were discussing internally at Weston and Sampson, we felt that was a very good opportunity to do something there. Add a little interest, add a little spice to the commute. It's kind of right in the middle of the path. So you're kind of trucking along the straight, and then there's something interesting that happens. You peel off the bike, the road, something happens, and then a little bit later, you kind of come back to it. So it adds some spice, add some interest to it. So,
and it might also be a good example of what we also could do maybe in the future in other areas where there are some ponds or that kind of stuff. But anyway, I like it.
Great. I appreciate the feedback.
Laura?
Yeah, I was going to say, I like
You're breaking up a little bit.
out in Austin, and I have those.
Laura, you're breaking up a little bit. To the RJ, maybe Laura's she's driving, she's in a bad spot. I wanted to hear your environmental, any environmental advantage
Like
there's RJ.
like that over Lee. It's nice because I think we're okay. Okay, no, I'm trying to. Oh, hello.
Laura, you're coming in and out.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get on the car ferry today. I'm coming back from Hyannis, but I was saying I like the whole idea of making it a recreation area is great, because I think we look a lot at paths and safety as a mode of transportation. But so I love that, and I love the boardwalk to make it more interesting as a recreation area. But it'd be nice to have things like, I don't know, I know it's kind of far out there, but places to stop for like that. There's the one water fountain out on when you head out to Mattakit, but I think there aren't a lot of spots to stop for water, maybe to read some signs with information. I think it'd be great to make it a destination in and of itself. So I like it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. RJ, I was curious on if there's any environmental advantages of having the boardwalk and not having an asphalt on the ground and having I know you have to clear cut it to it's solid, but underneath it can still grow and be normal. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so a lot of times with those boardwalks, you're able to have them high enough or let enough light through between the actual planks to have vegetation grow underneath, and it'd probably be lower impact. I don't know, Josh, if you know if that's Phillips Run, that the bike path crosses there where the boardwalk is, coming down from the cranberry bogs. But in any case, getting it up over that would probably be for the best, and the land bank has been permitting some other ADA accessible boardwalks elsewhere in kind of more sensitive areas. So I do like it too.
Yeah, I really like it, RJ. It's a little, Josh, is a little different for anything that's on Nantucket. People might have to mold that over a little bit, but I think if Tom Nevers community likes it, if BPAC, if it's better for the environment, I like stuff like that. It's just more interesting. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, just to touch on some of the environmental impact. I mean, yes, it's very low impact, right? We're not driving vehicles on there. You'll have to do obviously a little bit of clearing just to get the bike path in there, but you can keep it pretty tight. And then elevationally, where you leave grade, so is your pavement. So on this particular slide, the black asphalt, where you leave that and transfer from asphalt to the boardwalk, just the sandwich of the materials itself, right there, you need about a 2-foot drop from your board planks to where the ground plane is. And then as you kind of sweep further down, that distance only gets bigger and bigger. So from an illumination or light standard for vegetation growing, you're going to have a higher distance when you get out. So animals of all sizes, you could have deer and coyotes and in some of your larger mammals, there's plenty of room for them to migrate and move underneath it, because you're at least 2 feet above ground, potentially even more once you get to the middle. So you will have some vegetation. So environmentally, it's as low of an impact that we can have on the site to get this type of connection, I guess, through the area.
Randy, Jip, as a representative, all those in Tom Nevers, do you have any questions or comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I do. First, to Laura's point, a water fountains or a water fountain is very critical on the path. My question is at the very end, you're saying that what will happen is that it will be sort of a raised sidewalk for the final, say, 250, 300 yards. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it would be like a typical sidewalk that you would find in town, where it's a 6-inch vertical granite curb, and then you'd have your kind of your sidewalk, your road, your bike path along there. So it's just like you would see. It's a typical 6-inch vertical granite curb kind of.
And you're saying it would also be 10 feet wide, or would you have to narrow it because of the person's property?
Right now, we want to keep the consistency of having a 10-foot wide bike path. Some of the options that we've been kicking around internally is, could we skinny it down? Could we go to 8? Could we go to 6? It's still a little long as far as kind of our recommendations. I mean, we want to be respectful to the property owner and the homeowner, especially the one who's like right there. But if your whole bike path is 10 feet and then you skinny it down to 6, now you're really starting to kind of compress the users on there. They're more single file. It's harder to kind of walk, having two-way traffic. We like to have a 10-foot wide minimal path. That's better for two-way traffic. So if you have a biker going away back to Milestone. So for those reasons, we wanted to keep it, but we're open to potentially thinning that down We would just like to bounce those ideas off the committee here to see if there's concerns on your guys' end.
Okay, and then the last one was, I thought that your design recommendations were terrific. I thought the way you approach it was terrific. It's just that last part where you're going to have the abutters. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the practicality, how difficult it is. Is this something that we get through eminent domain, or is this their property?
So our surveyor is still working on the entire land property. He's setting all of his the bounds and markers and getting property lines on there. We haven't quite received all of that yet. So I'm not exactly sure if there is a right of way along Tom Nevers Road. Does the town own any kind of, I'm not exactly sure how far off the right of way extends off of Tom Nevers Road. So we're still in flux. We're still working on that, but I would reach back out to Mike on, I guess, the vehicle that we go through to acquire this land. I'm not fully vetted out on that process.
Yeah, as you know, if you've been down there, these people have very deep pockets.
That's what I was kind of concerned about.
So I don't, yeah. So Mike, maybe you can help us here.
Yeah, if there are right-of-way impacts, well, we would likely go through the county and acquire easements. Jason, you're very familiar with the process, having been through this rodeo a few times. We would do a taking. We would ask for voluntary grants of easements, share with them what the value of that easement would be. We would have to get them assessed, share with the property owner what the value is, ask them to donate that. If not, then we would have to go through the county commissioners and acquire that through eminent domain.
Question on the water. I don't think there's any town water out there. How would you do a water fountains once you got off Milestone?
There's water there's water at the park, you know, Jason. The bathrooms are there. So I'm assuming it's well water.
Yeah. I don't know. Would we have to dig a well for a water fountain?
No, what I'm saying is that all along the road, all along Tom Nevers Road, those people's homes all have water. So there's well water associated. I don't know if you dig a well, it seems like an extraordinary expense to get that done. Or
yeah, I don't know how we would do water fountains if there wasn't town water lines, but maybe there's something I don't know.
Well, there's no town water out there. That's all well.
That's my point.
Yeah.
How would we do water fountains without that? Mike, is there a way?
I'm gonna yield to somebody who knows more about this than I do. I'm sure there's a way to engineer it.
Does anyone know what that water is, the one on out to Mattakit?
They've got water, they've got town water. Oh, we have that.
And at the end of the road to going into Wisconsin, that's their town water also. The water fountain there.
If there's a desire to explore this, I mean, maybe I can have a conversation with Mark Willett and just say, let me know your ideas for providing water there. And, if there's desire, there's probably a solution. But right now, I just don't know what that might be.
Definitely have to Milestone and Tom Nevers. That would be nice to have a bunch of water there, of course.
Yeah. Josh, I'm just curious, we were concerned about this group from Old Tom Nevers Road to the beach, about that. Have you run into any difficulty with the people whose property you're abutting going down Tom Nevers Road? I know that early on, a number of the neighbors said to me that they'd been contacted, they had no problem. But as I understand, some people you've just never heard back from. Is that still the case? Or are you? In other words, I think what I heard about the people on Tom Nevers Road is a group of them said, no problem. A group of them said, gee, I'd like some more information. And a group of them you never heard back from. And I was wondering if that's changed and if you're running into any difficulties there that perhaps we could help with, or no.
I have not heard back from anybody that's on any of the property owners. I've heard anecdotal evidence from our surveyor when he was kind of walking down and doing survey points along Tom Nevers Road, he had a couple, and he explained to me, he had a couple homeowners come out and just ask, what are you doing? Like, kind of why are you, like, what's going on? He did bring up a point where he wasn't sure if Old Tom Nevers Road is a private road and if there's an Old Tom Nevers Road Association on there. So that might be something we would need to either confirm to look at, and that would could potentially, depending on where we cross Old Tom Nevers Road with that kind of crosswalk there, if it is an association, then do we need to get approval from everybody that lives down Old Tom Nevers Road or not? So those are some, I guess, follow-up pieces of information that we would need to confirm as we move along.
Old Tom Nevers Road is a private road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any last comments? I have to run, and if I run, we don't have a quorum. Mike, anything else you want us?
No,
No.
if that's, if it's appropriate, maybe we continue the discussion next week to, again, digest this material. Randy, you're going to have your association meeting. Perhaps you can take this material and communicate it with your group. I'm going to try to get, since this is recorded, I'm going to try to get this meeting posted on a project website if that's possible. And then we can continue the discussion next month. I would just, if we're taking no action for right now and just informational only, I would just ask to kind of close out the meeting if that's all right, if you could go. With committee comments and public comments, and then adjourn.
Any last comments before we adjourn? Joe, RJ, Laura?
No, not for now.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, Michelle,
Aye.
RJ,
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
And that's aye for me. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you all for
Thank you,
your time.
everybody. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop sharing.